Hey, welcome to Passion Powered Patter, a Mischief mini-series that meets with industry experts to explore how brands can connect with passions to form closer and more meaningful relationships with their consumer audience. Today, we'll explore how brands can successfully align themselves with a huge consumer passion point, sport, to drive consideration and cut through with their audience. We're joined by Vix Gold, UK and Ireland Marketing Director at Just Eat, a brand that has consistently aligned itself with sport across various touchpoints. Great to have you here, Vix. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't we start? Just tell us about yourself and what you do at Just Eat.
So, my job, I look after customer, partner and courier marketing, so pretty meaty. And it's my job to kind of set strategy, the marketing strategy, to make sure that we continue to win hearts and minds and bellies.
Brilliant. One of the biggest brands in the UK, beloved food delivery brand. How did you get into the world of sport? Why was sport the right kind of passion area for Just Eat?
Well, first of all, obviously, sport commands, huge audiences. It's such a passion point across the nation, across kind of mixed demographics. And it's such a great platform for us to kind of get involved in. And naturally, sport lends itself well to kind of, social and eating occasions. There was a synergy between the brand and the product and the service that we offer and that kind of sporting occasion.
Brilliant. But you're not just any sport. You're in football. You sponsor the Euros, one of the biggest sponsorship opportunities, not only in this country, but across Europe. Why that sponsorship? Why did that feel like the right move for the brand at that time?
Yeah, I think for us, it really gave us credibility and access to football in a really kind of credible way. So it would allow us to really speak to audiences in the football moments that really matter to them.
So you sponsor both the Euros in general and the women's game.
Yes.
The women's game has just like grown and grown and grown in popularity at the time that your sponsorship has gone, on and on and on with them. What's that ride been like?
Well, as a woman, it's obviously been incredible to be to see that, and also to be part of that, and to know that as a brand, we are kind of really supporting and championing the women's game whilst it's been on that kind of trajectory, and making sure that we drive and continue to drive that upward trajectory, and being a positive force within the game itself.
About that positive force idea, I think that's really important, and what separates your sponsorship from a lot of the other ones out there. Sponsorship is a huge opportunity for a brand like Just Eat, but it's also a big responsibility. How is it that you've been able to kind of, take this sponsorship from, what could be in the worst activations, like a badging exercise, into the incredible stuff that you guys are doing?
As a brand, we've participated in sports for a long time. We've, kind of dating back to, 2018, testing kind of, and running multiple different activations. I think what really struck me was that we had, especially when we kind of, got the sponsorship of UEFA, that we had a bigger job to do within this space. So when it came to kind of the women's Euros, it really felt like an opportunity for the brand to really kind of step in and make a difference, and do something beyond just badging, beyond just something which delivers joy, which is a core kind of part of our kind of brand identity, but really doing something that would impact kind of the game and the fans, and make women's football and football accessible to young girls, and beyond that, non-binary, for years to come. And football all starts with grassroots, and there's a real lack of accessibility for women and young girls to be able to participate in the sport at a grassroots level. So we felt we had a kind of a duty of care almost to really play a role in that space, so that young girls who were inspired by the Women's Euros had, access to be able to play football and be part of a football team within their community. And remember, this is post-COVID as well, right? So it was an opportunity for people to reconnect back in their community and do that through sport. So for us, turning our attention to kind of grassroots football, and for young girls and women in particular, felt really, an important part of our activation, a job to be done for us.
Amazing. I think one of the most incredible things the brand has done is stick with it for so long. I think many brands sometimes make a misstep and do an activation here, an activation there. But you've not only been, in women's football for so long, but you've been, building your role in there
Yeah.
from the original kind of campaigns of the 101, where you were sponsoring the 101 grassroots football groups around the UK, to the campaign like Allies United fighting homophobia in locker rooms at a grassroots level across the country, to more recently the Queen's Header, the world's first sports bar dedicated solely to women's sports. It's incredible. Tell us about the journey that you went on as a brand through those different campaigns.
Yeah, so it all started obviously with the 101 around the Women's Euros. And as you say, kind of wanting to make an impact in women and girls grassroots football, because this will supercharge the game. It all starts with talent at grassroots level. So that was a real kind of passion for us. And I suppose the start of our journey into grassroots football. And then that played through to our Pride sponsorship this year, where we partnered with Connor Cody and Football versus Homophobia to really support and drive allyship of the LGBTQIA community within grassroots football, providing kind of education to grassroots football teams to make sure that everyone feels like they belong in any kind of grassroots football club. And then that played through further again into the Queen's Header, as you mentioned, the first kind of sports bar kind of broadcasting women's only football, which was a huge success and a real kind of celebration of the women's game. Kind of achieved, secured so much coverage off the back of that. But more, it felt like a real kind of moment for us to celebrate how far the women's game has come. And yeah, it was amazing to see such participation. It was a sellout event with proceeds going to, the 101 football teams that we'd created to ensure that they stay well funded and supported to continue their journeys as individuals, but also within their communities.
Brilliant. I mean, the Queen's Header was a real experience. The energy in that room was palpable. I think one of the things that was most impressive about the space was not just, everyone was there and enjoying themselves and celebrating women's football, but how much, people really used it as a meeting space to enjoy the game, whether it was kind of media coming through and, interviewing athletes in the space, or just like the camaraderie that you got to see unfold in the room today. It was a really special activation.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I think what was really important for us as well is knowing our role whilst we were there. And our aim is to literally feed the game, whether that is feeding, because that is what we kind of do as a service, or ensuring that we're creating, that space for people to come and meet and enjoy women's football.
That's not only like a great strategic thought, feeding the game, being able to deliver your brand role like in such a creative and impactful way, but also like just bringing something back to the table and the culture you're trying to engage with. I think that's a beautiful idea. You've been doing this very successfully for a number of years now, and the business is seeing the rewards of that long-term commitment. Do you have any tips for other brands that might be considering moving into sports or adopting a sponsorship?
Yeah, I think having a clear kind of purpose, vision and strategy, and kind of sticking with that, but not being afraid to test and learn as well. We've done some things really well, and we've also done some things that we've learnt from, for sure, but that's all part of it. Know why you're showing up and what you're trying to achieve. As we discussed before, just showing up and with a badging exercise, it's not enough. You really need to understand the audience that you're trying to connect with and engage in, to drive that kind of brand awareness, but also brand engagement, which ultimately ends up with, customers choosing to shop with you. I also think as well, like working with your agency partners to really bring together a cohesive strategy and cohesive execution is really, really critical, because you're engaging in multiple channels and in multiple places, and you really need to make sure that your stories connect and really work together to drive that kind of that campaign through, and be clear on why you're taking the sponsorship. Don't just buy something for the audience that you think it gives you access to. You really have to have a clear kind of vision, strategy, and purpose, and ensure that you are kind of vigilant in kind of delivering against that. I think one of the biggest dangers is you take a big platform like this and you just assume, like with the UEFA tournament, that buys you kind of brand credibility and trust. It doesn't. You need to really participate in order to actually get value from that sponsorship platform. So they would be my tips.
That's a really great point. I think one of the things that makes your activity work so well is you have that really clear brand idea of deliver joy, and that's what makes the sponsorship activity tie into the consumer experience, tie into the television advertising that you do. How do you think about deliver joy in the kind of sponsorship space?
The way we think about it is, first of all, kind of what does the audience and the customer need from us in this moment? So we think about it through the funnel as well as through the line. So when we're delivering joy, what does that mean in a physical space? What does that mean in a digital space? And what does that mean at point of purchase too? So for us, it's very much around using kind of our channels, our engagement channels, to really have kind of point of view and drive our message to kind of enhance that football experience and or culture. And then as you come to kind of point of transaction and, with the customer, making sure that we're showing up with, kind of offers and products that are going to be relevant to the customer in that viewing experience. So for us, it's a kind of a completely holistic plan to ensure that, we're kind of showing up with the right message at the right time on the right channels to really drive that kind of brand engagement and loyalty from our audiences.
It's such a clear strategy. It's a joy to work with. Are there any other brands that you think are doing interesting things in sports or that have your attention?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the campaigns that I and we really loved was the Adidas Pitch Please campaign, apart from being brilliantly titled. And again, maybe this is my kind of passion for grassroots football, but this was actually solving a problem within kind of the women's game, where 59% of kind of young girls fall out of women's and girls football because of lack of access to facilities and pitches. And so they teamed up with Versus, which is a kind of social platform, to be able to provide access to kind of power league football pitches for kind of women and girls that wanted to participate in the sport at a grassroots level. So again, for me, it was purposeful, it had intent, and it solved a genuine problem that could help unlock and grow the game in the future.
Amazing. What's next for the brand?
2024 is obviously a huge moment and year for football, so we're really excited. We've got great plans, and absolutely you can expect to see more kind of investment focus in the things that we believe matter in football, with a real kind of laser sharp focus on grassroots football.
It doesn't get better than that. Thank you so much, Vix, for coming and sharing your insights today. Right, so that concludes this episode of Passion Powered Patter. Do you have anything to add to the points raised? We'd love to know your thoughts. So however you're viewing, please don't hesitate to share your views. In the next episode, we're going to be talking to England professional rugby player Anthony Watson about his views on how brands can authentically engage sports talent.